But of course, Huawei was not the only company. Well, I mean, Huawei is actually going to be a major talking point for what we're going to be discussing. But outside of laptops, this was a humongous week for convertibles or sort of tablet PCs, whatever it is that we're going to call this new product segment. And because, we focus mostly on smartphones, tablets, and wearables in the coverage that I produce and that Jaime produces and that Jules helps us put together, we had to bring on someone more educated and more experienced in the world of convertible computing gear. And that's one Mr. Adam Lein, editor at Pocketnow.
Yay.
Well, first of all, thanks for joining us. It's we haven't actually properly gotten to work together since the challenge video that we did, pitting a Windows Phone camera up against a Huawei.
You don't count the Galaxy S8?
Well, no, see, that was what was kind of a bummer, is that we had this split shooting schedule. So, I mean, we were in the same building, but I didn't get to really work with you on putting together any videos. I was on the opposite side of the hall trying to shoot a 2-minute comparison video. So no, I'm really stoked to have you back on, because you're sort of the you're my counterpart in the world of photography. The editor that's actually been doing more of our sort of photography conversation, camera conversation, stuff like that. And then I got to see you playing with some killer Slate PC gear at that Samsung event with the... So first of all, before we even jump in, I need you to settle a debate for me right now. Wacom or Wacom?
Wacom.
Wacom. Okay, so that's what I've been saying. I have a friend who swears that it's Wacom tablets. And I've been telling him for the better part of a couple years that he is wrong. And so now I am happy to have the expert weigh in on that.
People on YouTube used to try to correct me too. And I'm like, no, you're wrong.
No.
It's a combination of two words. Wa is a Chinese word. I forgot what it means. I think it means harmony.
Okay.
And com is short for computer.
Oh, okay. So the harmoniousness of using your computer to produce illustrations and graphics, and that's where we get Wacom.
I believe that's the story.
Right on. No, and it's just kind of fun. It's one of those things. Someone tries to correct you, and you're like, "Well, I would agree with you if you were right," and unfortunately, you're not.
Yes, all the employees know how to pronounce it correctly, so.
Exactly.
I've asked them a number of times.
it was when I was a voiceover producer, I used to get into these debates with people. Is it Hyundai? Is it Hyundai? How am I supposed to say this car name? And that was just for an audition. So first, I want to jump right in. We've got I've got my list here right in front of me. We've got the Samsung Galaxy Book. We do have the other Huawei, the MateBook E, which stands in sort of stark difference to the more laptop designed Huawei's that we were talking about earlier in the podcast. The new Surface Pro is out, and there's even another crowdfunded convertible that's going up on Indiegogo. I'd like to kick this right off with the Samsung, because I did actually get to spend a little bit of time with that Samsung Galaxy Book during in Barcelona for MWC, and you got to spend a lot more time actually dig into what this thing can do. And I really wanted to get your impressions of it. Obviously, I want people to go and catch the review, because I think you put together a phenomenal review. But in a nutshell, for the podcast listeners and the podcast viewers, Samsung has a rich history of building Windows PCs and nice laptops. And now I think they're bringing some more of their tablet expertise to the table here.
Yeah, they've had some good Windows 7 tablets a long time ago, too. There was the Slate 7. But this new Galaxy Book, the screen is just really gorgeous. It's Super AMOLED. I mean, I don't think there's anything else with this large of a Super AMOLED screen on it. And it's also the first time they got the S Pen from the Note onto a large Windows 10 PC. And it's pretty nice. It's not as nice as the much more expensive Wacom, but it's built with it's like a cheaper version of Wacom's technology. So they're licensing Wacom's screen tech and the pen tech, which is the same as the S Pen. But
Well,
it's
and because that
yeah.
Wacom like set the standard for that kind
Oh
of
yeah.
pen touch computing. So if any company really wanted to get a jump start, it would make sense to license that digitizer, right?
Right. And that's what Microsoft did at the beginning too. The original Surface Pro and the Surface Pro 2 both had Wacom technology in there.
Gotcha. So, and I guess I should let our viewers know, by trade, you are a photographer, and I've seen you really dig into this kind of gear. So, I mean, this is like for something to perform well for your job. I mean, it really has to live up to sort of a designer, graphic design mentality.
Yeah.
Does S Pen, because I know S Pen is built around that idea of mobility productivity, right? Like I pull this pen out of my phone and I can jot down some quick notes, or I can select a view of the screen so that I can quickly crop or make an animated GIF or something like that.
Yeah.
Now, when we expand the screen size, does that help flesh out the rest of the S Pen usage, bringing it more in line with what like a proper graphics tablet would deliver for a creative professional?
Yes. It's nicely supported in Photoshop and Painter and all the pressure sensitive high end graphics programs. So it works really well with that. They did also do that same kind of screenshot S Pen. What do they call it again?
Well, I mean, there's just that.
Smart Select. Yeah,
Yeah.
Smart Select and Screen Write. They brought that to Windows 10 as well for the Galaxy Book. So the same kind of thing that you have in the Note. But I don't think it's that useful on Windows 10.
Well, I was just gonna ask. So, I mean, like, I think consumers. So, I'm sort of wrapping up our main review coverage and comparisons for the Galaxy S8 and the S8 Plus. And the more I use those phones, the more I can kind of say, like there's a bunch of stuff on these phones that I know a lot of people might say is bloat or is unnecessary or is a duplicate kind of service or just kind of clogs things up. But when I talk to people who use Samsung phones, it's rare that they use every feature, but there's always one feature that they love about their Samsung that they can't get on anything else. So it's your opinion, like some of those features don't necessarily translate to a more robust computing environment. Does Windows 10 get in the way, or does this just feel like Samsung hasn't found a way to properly integrate this into a more tablet laptop style user interface?
I think a lot of the things that they added were already there in Windows 10. Like the ink workspace is already there, and that already does the screen writing, the screen capture. It doesn't do the animated GIF thing, but how often do you need to do that?
I don't know. I mean, like if you surf around on Reddit, there's like a whole subculture of people that like
Maybe
apparently live off of their Reddit internet points by making tasty memes and GIFs.
That's true. And the Samsung Notes app doesn't seem to synchronize with anything, so just use OneNote instead. OneNote's much more powerful. So they're there, but they're not really necessary. The other thing they added was the Samsung Flow app, which is a pretty nice idea that links it with the Galaxy S, I think 6 and higher. So you can get messages on the tablet on Windows 10, and you can use the fingerprint scanner to log in, that way. I don't know how useful that is. You need the specific Samsung phone.
Right. Were you using? Because I know you were. You're one of the last holdouts that was Team Windows Phone.
Yeah, I didn't have a Galaxy
to try it out.
Really work it with, but I've seen it in use at the demo.
So this wasn't enough to convince you to like go full bore into the Samsung ecosystem, then?
No.
So just a couple other quick questions before we move off from the Galaxy Book. It's been something that I found a little frustrating. Like I almost picked up a Surface Book when I was shopping for a new laptop, and one of the things that I really wanted was Thunderbolt, or at least USB-C ports on my laptop. So I ended up not going with that. Do you think that the hardware layout for Galaxy Book really does fulfill that mixed mode usage? Because it's not like it's got the same sort of like hinge. I mean, we're going to be talking about the Surface Pro 4, which I think is sort of setting the standard for this sort of hybrid idea of a device. This is a little bit more in Samsung and Apple's tablety territory with magnetic keyboard covers and the one additional USB-C port. There's always the fear. Is this going to be a jack of all trades, master of none? Is this going to be really flexible enough to pull off multi-modes of different kinds of computer or tablet usage? Is Windows 10 able to hang with that experience so that it doesn't feel laggy in some areas or sort of overpowered in others? What were your experiences kind of like trying to adopt this hardware into a daily usage strategy?
I've been using it for about a week. The keyboard, the way the stand is, it's not really good for setting it on your lap. I mean, that was true with the original Surface Pro and most of them afterwards. But that's true with the, iPad Pro and any kind of tablet keyboard stand as well. So it's not so good for that, but if you're going to set it on desk, it's totally fine. And the new keyboard is much better than the previous one.
Nice.
And the kickstand is much better than the previous one. It doesn't fall over as easily. That's the Galaxy Tab Pro S. As far as the other questions, you can switch it to desktop mode really easily. I kind of like it in tablet mode for all the easier touch features, but switching it to desktop mode, it's just like a laptop, setting it on your desk, can do everything. It comes with Windows 10 Home, so you don't have virtual machine, but you can always upgrade. It's been pretty good.
Now, when we're looking at something, so I was very critical of the Surface laptop. I don't know if you were following that kind of those hardware announcements as closely. I feel like if I were going to be spending a not insignificant sum of money on sort of more premium devices, this is kind of the direction I'd rather head in. I don't know how apt I am to really use a lot of tablet mode. That's not really a lot of my usage, but I like having the flexibility to move back and forth. Even on my laptop, I've got a Razer Blade. And even for that not being a convertible or a multi-mode kind of computer, I still really like the ability to reach up and touch the screen for some things, come back down, use a traditional laptop keyboard and trackpad for other things, and that it's got some pretty killer hardware on board. Do you feel like Samsung's strategy here is moving them in the right direction against this kind of competition? Or should we still be making more noise about more traditional laptop-style solutions?
I think they're going in the right direction. They also do the laptops, so they got their bases covered. But yeah, the book it's really nice and portable. It's a little bit thicker and heavier than the Galaxy Tab S that they released last year, but it's a lot more powerful too. It's a much better design. So yeah,
and so you were ready to just drop your Wacom and be like, the Samsung is totally it. That's
no.
what I'm going to do. No.
I
still
yeah.
I still show people like when you screenshotted that Wacom tablet has those 3D scanning cameras on the front face. And I still been showing people like we're in the middle of this show floor. And he's got it right there. That's excellent.
I mean,
we're in the middle of the show floor, and he just kind of waves this tablet around me, and all of a sudden there's this blobby model of me sitting trying to drink, chug a cup of coffee at this countertop table, and it was just incredible. Like I don't think I'd ever seen anything really work real world like that before, and it's just not something I've ever had the chance to play with. So we did spend a little time talking about the Huawei MateBook X and the MateBook D. These are more MacBook competitors, but I definitely wanted to get your take on the MateBook E, which was also another announcement that they had for their modular system, their modular computer. Again, this is a Core M3, up to a Core i5, I believe, with a 12-inch screen.
So,
And some specs that look like they're trying to position this against products like what we were just talking about, like the Galaxy Book.
Surface Pro clones.
Exactly. And well, ever since it was the Surface Pro 3 that I think Dell had a solution out, or HP had a solution out. Lenovo's always been in the mix with Yoga and Twist style computers and solutions. Like I've got the Lenovo Yoga Book right here, which doesn't even have a keyboard. It's just got that really crazy touch sensor thing on the bottom. And I don't like typing on it, but I like doing a lot of other things on it. So this has been kind of a fun thing to play with here. But I'm still looking for that killer combination of portability and being able to get work done. What were your thoughts on MateBook E? Huawei isn't necessarily the biggest name player when it comes to computers. They're just starting to crack into smartphones in North America.
Well, I think last year was their first. Here's the old one. Last year was their first computer, the original MateBook, and I was really impressed. It was I thought it was really well done. I mean,
what were some of the different? Because like I said, I know Huawei really well from phones over the last 2 years, but I've never had the opportunity to handle a MateBook or play with anything else. What were some of the differences on that MateBook versus say a competing product like a Surface, for example, from last year?
I think that it's a lot like what Samsung is doing with the Galaxy Book. So we got the leather foldable cover, and you gotta flip it down under there to make the stand. So it's a lot like that. And then the keyboard is obviously there, and it's got the trackpad. And it's attachable, of course.
Nice.
So this is very thin. It's iPad Pro shaped, like all of them, I guess. No camera on the back, which is great. I mean,
really, you're not a fan of cameras on tablets?
Nope.
I knew you had good taste. That's why I wanted you on this podcast.
And the pen on this one was really unique. It's got a little laser pointer in it.
Well, you careful with laser pointers, man. You don't want to fry your webcam there.
And it's got little buttons that can be right click, and there's a customizable, and it even has Bluetooth control for remote control of PowerPoint presentations from the pen.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is, that was pretty innovative. And it worked really nicely.
So it seems to me like Huawei is trying to deliver a slightly more corporate-focused aesthetic than what Samsung is trying to do.
I don't know. I mean, the Samsung ones are all just straight black.
Mm-hmm.
And Huawei's doing these brown kind of various colors. What other colors do they have for the E? They have three or four colors.
Let me see if I can pull it up while we're chatting here. But in delivering something that seemed to be a little bit more leather, I think they're going for some slightly more Apple style color schemes than what Samsung is trying to do. Especially with Samsung, I think playing this round very simple. I don't think I have any. It looks like it's gray and gold. The folio trims are brown, blue, brown, and pink.
Pink isn't a very business.
That's not a very businessy kind of color. Well, I don't know. Maybe there's a magazine editor out there that just absolutely has to have a pink laptop case. But in looking at where Huawei was with that, is that a dock or?
Yeah. They got a port expander.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
VGA. So their new one is designed a little differently because the old one had ports right here.
Mm-hmm.
So you couldn't really plug something in at that port at the same time. So they revamped the design of their new one.
That's interesting that I'm wondering how many people are really still using VGA.
I know.
on
I
presentation gear.
I thought about that too, but if you're in a business or a school, they probably have projectors in all the
Yeah.
rooms, and those projectors are probably old.
Yeah, but I mean, like, even for the last time I taught an acting workshop about a year ago, and it was in this old like theater, and everything there had at least HDMI. You know, like even in this old like busted black box theater, it was like, yeah, you need to plug into a projector. I've got HDMI and I've got like Apple DisplayPort, and I got like, okay, awesome, yeah, I think we'll be fine.
All
That's
right.
great, good deal. So
WGA.
what do you think about some of the updates, the refresh on the MateBook E? Again, I mean, this doesn't look like Huawei's trying to make the play like back when Windows 8 was really getting translated into low cost Atom chipset, mini tablets. You could pick up my wife used a Toshiba that was like $100, and she loved that thing.
The 8-inch ones.
Yeah, exactly. The one of the big arguments I think was, if you were one of these other players, you weren't Apple, you weren't Samsung, you weren't Microsoft, you were going to make the play on price. Ultra low power hardware and kind of cheap, maybe even starting to push into the more disposable end of the tech ecosystem. But they're saying that this next Huawei is going to be priced at €999 to start. So it really doesn't seem like Huawei feels that they need to make the argument that they're cheap, that's not the impression you should get from a Chinese manufacturer anymore, that they can compete with bigger players.
Yeah, they're going for the good quality tablet that can replace your laptop kind of thing, just like the Surface Pro.
Well, and in that even their pricing, because both the Surface Pro and the MateBook E start with Core M3s, but this is already, it's looking like it's going to be priced at least a couple $100 higher than what, or a couple €100 higher than what Microsoft is going to deliver the entry level Surface Pro for.
But the MateBook comes with the keyboard and a pen, right?
Oh, that's true. That's
right.
So
you got to factor in the price. So if we calculate it that way, it might be a lot closer.
Then they're probably right on board. But I was impressed. It's like they're talking MIMO antennas. They're talking what is this, Windows 10 Signature Edition? I'm not entirely sure what
that just means there's no bloatware.
Oh, so they're that's also the counter argument to a Lenovo. Yeah. Where it's like I've never. I mean, ThinkPads are usually okay, but like, what was it, the Y700 that I reviewed back in the day? That was a pretty well infested machine when it came to what was pre-installed. So I think this is an interesting commentary, and since we were already sort of bringing that up as the price comparison, I think we need to go ahead and talk about the 900-pound gorilla in the room, which is the new Surface Pro, and that Microsoft has been making some changes to this product line. This isn't some radical redesign over previous, I would say even from the Surface Pro 3. This looks like it's a member of the same family of products. But it's getting a nice little spec bump, definitely addressing battery life, which I think has always been a huge issue for the Surface Pro line. And again, like you were saying, we're seeing some refreshes to the Surface Pen and pricing, which starts very reasonably for that Core M3 model at $799.
But they removed the pen.
Yeah, but I mean, without the Surface Pen. So what are your thoughts? New Surface Pro, not the most exciting update, kind of a TikTok refresh. Does this keep Microsoft at the head? Does this still help Microsoft define what a multi-mode Windows device should resemble?
I think so. I think the new screen tech that has the tilt sensitivity in the pen and the increased pressure sensitivity and the 7th generation Intel processors brings it all up to speed. I think the new kickstand has some more angles there, so that's good. But yeah, overall, if you already have a Surface Pro 3 or Surface Pro 4, it's probably not something you need to go out and run out and buy right away. But if you've been thinking about a Surface Pro, it's going to be the way to go.
Right. And so I'm trying to see. So it doesn't come with a type cover. Is that right?
Right. It doesn't come with anything. It's just the
So,
tablet.
if we were to add the Surface Pen and a type cover, that's going to be another $210.
I think so.
Yeah, so a base model Surface Pro gets us right in line with kind of that pricing notion around where Huawei was with the MateBook. You were right. That's we're really starting to crack into that $1,000 price point.
Yeah, I kind of like that they don't have the pen included now, because now you can choose a color for the pen and the keyboard.
Right.
So previously it was a silver pen, and that's what you get. But now you can have a red pen with a red cover, or a blue pen with a blue cover. So I kind of like that. It's more about choice. But yeah, you got to factor in the prices.
Yeah. I mean, that would be pretty disappointing if you weren't really paying attention and you're like, yeah, I'm getting a new Surface Pro. Why isn't there anything else in the box?
I got to use my finger for everything.
I mean, the last Surface I really spent any time with, it's actually on the bookshelf behind me, was the Surface 2, the Surface RT 2. And I was kind of bummed that they didn't continue their experiments with the blades, because I got it on this weird promotion where it came with their music mixing blade. So it's got these like sliders and these these touch squares to program in like a synthesizer or like some sort of music creating software. And I just thought, man, this is going to be cool. And they can come out with like a Photoshop blade, and they can come out with a video editing blade, and they can kind of do all this other stuff. And none of that ever came to pass. It's just keyboards.
I kind of miss the touch keyboard too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, it's kind of like in using the Lenovo Yoga Book. I do not like typing on this keyboard, but it is nicer than typing on an on-screen keyboard if I have to punch out a short piece of text. Like, I don't want to write a full review on this thing. Yeah. The last time I did that was when I was reviewing it, and I actually wrote the review of the Yoga Book on the Yoga Book, and that wasn't very fun at all. I did not enjoy doing that. But I because I'm with you, I feel that there are sort of brief interactions that people might want something that's QWERTY. You know, you've got all those QWERTY pads, but they don't necessarily need like a full, robust keyboard, trackpad, like a traditional experience. And maybe that saves them $20 or something like that.
I mean, it is a great keyboard, but having that touch keyboard that was just so thin was pretty nice. I mean, these are still very thin.
Oh no, totally. And I really do feel like there is an argument to be made, just the fact that the type cover is $160. You know, like if you could do like a $99 touch cover, I feel that would be, you know, sort of an appropriate way to give someone an option. Because I kind of feel, and maybe you'll disagree with me because, you know, you do so much work pen touch and you've got your Wacom, but I think for a lot of people out there, maybe the Surface Pen isn't necessarily a must-have accessory for a portable or multi-mode modular computer, but some kind of text entry probably is. I'm not seeing a lot of people walking around with Surface Pros without the keyboard cover attached. So a part of me kind of feels like this $799 price point is a little disingenuous if you're pretty much guaranteed that like the accessory you at least need to have is another $160 keyboard solution.
I think maybe it should be advertised as a bundle.
Right.
You know?
And like kind of list what those prices might be when you kind of put a couple different things together like that.
You know, right up front.
Well, because
show those.
something like the port expander or the Surface Dock, that's probably not a mandatory purchase for
No,
every single Surface owner out there. I know a lot of people who need that kind of edition, but not for everybody.
right.
I don't think I've ever seen a Surface without its keyboard cover in the wild.
No, me neither.
And I am starting to see more Surfaces. If you go hit a coffee shop, you'll see a sea of MacBooks and like 2 or 3 people who
Oh
are
yeah.
the outliers, at your local Starbucks, punching away on Final Draft, trying to write their screenplays on a Surface Pro instead.
I go to biotech conferences sometimes, and there's a lot more Surface Pros there.
Oh, I would totally
Yeah,
believe that. And like my sister and my brother-in-law, they're big fans of Surface, and they do a lot of work in physics. And so again, it's just ultra portable, still a powerful computer,
yeah,
but it's a lot more flexible for them to carry around. And
definitely.
I've seen a lot of traction in markets like that for Surface stuff. So
Pretty nice.
I guess the philosophical question I would want to ask. We've talked about the Galaxy Book. We've talked about the Surface Pro. We talked about the Huawei MateBook. Has Windows peaked, or I guess I should say, is this sort of where we should expect Windows to stay for the next generation? Is there something else that we can do to make this, to sort of make these devices more portable, or to fulfill more roles, or to make them more flexible? It really seems that once we got out of the Surface
Hmm.
Pro and the Surface Pro 2, that we'd kind of landed on what this should look like. And then Windows 10, the update to Windows 10 seemed to reinforce that idea. This is what Microsoft looks like now, and this is how you should use it now. And even if you don't have one of these modular computers, a lot of systems are being sold with touchscreens at
Yeah,
least. That seems to be where we're headed, or at least where we're going to stay for a little while now that we're here.
I feel like it's going to be where we'll stay for a little while. Although, haven't the Surface sales kind of stagnated a little bit lately? And
Yeah, so they're
so,
they're not they're not growing. The one of the last things I read is that Surface sales were still growing, but they weren't growing as quickly. Kind of the same conundrum
okay,
that
yeah.
when Apple's called a failure for a fiscal quarter, but they still demonstrated growth. They just didn't demonstrate as much growth as
Yeah.
speculators thought they should have. One of the last things I read was there was sort of oh, what is that? Osborn Effect? Is that the right
I'm not sure about
reference?
that.
It was an old computer company way back in the day, and they made this computer. And then before it was really out in the market, the CEO was dumb enough to say, "Oh, and you're not going to believe what we're going to do for the second generation of
Oh.
this computer." And then no one bought the first generation computer, so the company folded before they could make the second
Oh.
generation. I believe that was the Osborn. But there was, I think there was some hint of that, because I think we had an idea that these, from the Surface to from the Surface Pro to the Pro 2 to the Pro 3 to the Pro 4, these things have been really regularly updated. And then we kind of hit just this little bit of a lull where Microsoft didn't push
Yeah.
the same sort of update as aggressively. And so I think there was just a little bit of a slump as everyone was waiting to see, like, was this going to be some crazy new redesign? Were we going to get a new Surface Book? Um,
Right.
what was going to happen? And I think when people saw the Surface Laptop, and now that we've got the Surface Pro 4 refresh, I think I think those people who were sort of holding out um, will probably jump back into the market on that again. But it's not to say that they haven't been facing some solid competition from the other Microsoft partners.
Yeah,
I've
that's
been
true
seeing a
too.
few more Lenovo's out there, and you're still not going to be able to sort of undersell some of the other players. Like Acer and Asus make some phenomenal like gaming hardware, but they still make a ton of less expensive gear
Yeah,
that
yeah.
consumers can kind of jump on whenever they're walking around a Best Buy.
Hmm. I think last year we were all expecting a Surface Pro 5 because normally they would release or announce them like every fall, right?
Right.
So yeah, everybody was waiting for that, but it didn't happen.
Well, and just how do you feel about the sort of the name and the branding on this? Like, they're not really saying a number. It's just Surface
Yeah,
Pro.
it's kind of like what Apple does, right? It's
Yeah.
a MacBook or a MacBook Pro.
I I still think every company should just go to years.
Yeah,
You know,
years
if you
makes
have if you have
sense.
a MacBook, it's the MacBook 2015, it's the
Yeah,
MacBook 2016, it's the Surface Pro 2017. I think that
yeah,
would help us especially us in the review world
right.
would help us out so
I
much.
know, totally. I think that's what we're gonna start calling the Surface Pro.
I think that
We
makes a
will,
lot of
at
sense too.
least.
Yeah. You know, Pocketnow will lead the way on what Microsoft should have been doing
The
all along.
2017 Surface Pro.
Right. Excuse me. So, lastly, I just kind of wanted to get your thoughts. I've been very critical about sort of crowdfunding products, and you know, when it works really well. Even when it works really well, it can still be kind of a cataclysmic failure. I've got this killer battery that I funded as part of was it Indiegogo um,
Yeah.
before crap, what was it? It was before IFA last year, and I just got it a couple weeks ago. You know, successfully funded, crowdfunded. It's a great battery, but I don't think I needed
Took
to
a
wait that
while.
long for that. Excuse me, sorry. Just got this dry throat. I can't shake it. So we've got Jules posted a story on the Chewy Surbook.
Yeah, I
Light
saw
on its
that.
feet, and it stomps all over its Indiegogo goal. Base model starts with an Intel Celeron N3450. I am not familiar with Intel chipsets outside of the cores anymore. I know they still make
Celeron's
Celerons,
the
and I know
low
they still make
budget.
Pentiums. But what it's got a Celeron CPU, 6 GB of RAM. It starts with a 64 gigabytes of storage. There's an option to crank that up to 128. One USB Type C and two USB 3 Type A's. Almost twice the battery capacity of,
Yeah,
I think, the last generation Surface Pro 4. Yeah, they're comparing it against the last generation Surface Pro, not the
right.
current generation Surface Pro. Detachable keyboard, and the starting price is $473.
It's a pretty nice price.
That's not bad. And it looks a lot like just yet another Surface clone. Kickstand is built into the tablet itself.
Yeah,
Even the keyboard does that little magnetic pop up,
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
where the very top edge of the
Along the
keyboard
bezel.
snaps, so that's got that little bit of an angle to it.
Yeah,
Trackpad built into the keyboard, and it looks like, I don't know if it's going to include, but I don't know anything about the Celeron, and I'm just kind of surprised because there's that sort of jump between like Atom CPUs to sort of the core. Like the Core M3 is sort of the sweetheart right now if you want a lower cost, I shouldn't say a low cost, a
yeah.
lower cost fanless design. But let's see. Customers can also get a full Surbook set for the 128 gigabyte version for $399. Oh, for the super early bird. Okay,
Yeah.
I see. So
Okay.
if you were to go and help crowdfund right now, you could get the full kit with the keyboard
Right.
and the larger storage capacity for $399. So if you were to get one of those, I would say you'd probably want to jump on a deal like that
If it comes out.
if it comes out. Well, I mean, it's funded, so now it's just a matter of when it comes out. Hopefully,
If/when.
knock on wood. So is that something that you could take for a spin, get your work done? It seems, I don't know. It's probably a little
It
underpowered for what you
feels a
might want
little
to do on it.
underpowered, yeah. I mean, except for the battery life. The battery life is
Right.
probably great.
Yeah. Well, I would have to believe so. If they're really saying that this thing has, it's saying
Is
it's
it
got similar
10,000?
battery capacity to an iPad Pro and almost twice the battery capacity of the last Surface Pro 4. So that should mean it's at least an all-day champ.
But if it doesn't
Fanless
come out
design.
for a year or two,
This is what always makes me so crazy nervous about. So I've had so many great experiences with crowdfunding, and just the last 2 or 3 projects that I've thrown my own money at. One of them didn't get funded, and the other 2, it's just like they took forever to ship those products. So
yeah, I'm a little
I don't know.
skeptical on crowdfunded products.
But so do you think that this is so? I don't even know exactly how I want to even phrase this question for you. We know that there's sort of an idea of premium devices, or I'm going to say $1,000 price point. You're talking your iPad Pros, you're talking your base model Surface Pro, you're talking the Huawei MateBook.
Yeah.
Trying to push that experience to a lower price tier hasn't really been very successful.
No.
I think Microsoft tried really hard with, Surface RT, and that was a misstep. I don't think they had a very good software strategy, even though I think the hardware was actually quite nice. But then even with the Atom-powered Surface that they released, that didn't really seem to catch on as well with consumers. Well, can we make that balance? Is there a way that we can say, like, this is made out of nicer materials, it's made out of a magnesium alloy, it's got a huge battery, but will people care about those things if they fire it up and it doesn't feel like a nice a software experience as the hardware chassis feels when they're pulling it out of the box?
I'm not sure about that.
Well, I mean, like, do you think consumers are really like, is there any gap in this market that consumers are really thinking, like, hey, I need something cheap, but I need it to look nice, and it's okay if it's a little bit slower? Is that a product segment that we're just overlooking?
It's small, cheap, or powerful. Pick 2.
Right.
Right? Is that the choice?
We're gonna try and make our business triangle there.
Yeah.
You can have it done fast. You can have it done cheap. You can have it done well.
Yes.
Pick 2.
Pick 2.
So, because I would be really curious to see who responds to a product like this. Windows 10 Home. I mean, I think they do have their eyes on a market demographic. I think they have their eye on a certain type of consumer. I just don't know how many people really want that. Other than just these sort of people that seem to jump on crowdfunding campaigns. Let me see if I can pull up, because it sounds like this has already been funded. So let me pull up the Indiegogo page. But what do you think would be most important to try and translate down into a lower price tier? Is it the nicer build? Is that the more emotional part of it? Or do you think people are going to be disappointed if it doesn't feel as powerful as a product which looks similar?
I think they'll be disappointed. It's hard to tell.
Because a lot of this feels like it's close to older Surface tech. The stylus supports 1,024 levels of pressure sensitivity and support. It's got that dual band Wi-Fi. I love that they still advertise stuff like that.
On the other hand, it might be good enough. It's all about what's good enough at that price.
Right.
So if we're talking $500, $600 range, maybe people will be able to accept that the speed is not up to the standards of a $1,000 or $2,000 tablet PC.
Yeah, see, this is really interesting. So what is so their goal was $30,000. They're currently at $204,000. So they're 680% of their goal. But if I'm looking at the perks, their perks aren't maxed out.
can still buy more.
Yeah, so they've got the 64 gig for $299, the 64 gig with a keyboard and a pen for $349, and the 128 gig with a keyboard and a pen for $399, and all of them still have plenty of room. So the most popular is the 399, the 128 gig, but out of 200 units, they are claiming 120. So there's still 80 more that you could go and buy at the time this podcast was recorded. And if I just do a quick little bit of math on this calculator here, 20 times 9 is 47 plus 349 times 77 plus 17 times 99. Okay, so they've been funded to $204,649, but only $80,000 of that seems to be from their perks.
Oh.
That's kind of weird, right?
Where did the rest of the money come from?
It's like, who's running over to an Indiegogo is like, you know what? I'll chip them $5. That doesn't seem like it would be a thing. Yeah, I'm kind of curious, like, how that's been backed. Unless maybe there were more perks. I don't know. They readjusted their perks because they got such a great response. I have no idea. But I only see the 3 perks listed, and I see plenty of room on those perks for this being 680% over its initial funding goal.
Another thing that I'm skeptical about is getting the drivers right. Because when the Surface Pro 4 originally came out, the drivers were terrible.
Yeah, they were bad.
The GPU drivers. Ugh. And the original Surface Pro had bad graphics tablet drivers for Photoshop and Painter, and it didn't work well with those.
It took a long time to get that stuff right.
Yeah. So, somebody new, are they going to be able to do that? I was skeptical about Huawei too, though, because that was the MateBook last year. That was their first thing.
Mm-hmm.
But they really did a good job. They got that working really nicely.
Well, I mean, this is also this company's out of Shenzhen, so you would hope that they have access to some kind of talent, developer resources, something.
The quality control.
Yeah. I just that really like I really want to know if there have been 562 backers. How did this thing get funded if there's still room on their perks? I'm going through and I'm looking at all of their backers right now. Like, anonymous, just 5 hours ago, got the $3.99 perk. I got to stop because I'm going to sit here and go through their whole site. Yeah, I'll be really curious. I mean, like, I know Jules loves digging up these kinds of things, so this was a fun one to take a look at. But I'll be really curious to see if this. Well, I first of all, I doubt we'll probably even get our hands on one, unfortunately. But this is one that I'm going to bookmark because I want to follow up on. I'm really curious about that notion. I think with phones, we're starting to get a point across that just because you didn't spend $700, $800, $900 on a phone doesn't mean you can't still have a premium experience.
Right.
But I don't think we've managed to find a way to translate that into more traditional laptop or hybrid computers. And so if more of these companies are going to start producing products like this and we see good support, and it's not just, some weird manufacturer Chinese tablet from Banggood supplier something that's just kind of stapled together from parts that were left over or something, then I could be really excited about that. But the companies that I think in the past we might have turned to, a company like Huawei, they're making the jump straight to the same tier, the same sort of premium tier as the established competition that we already have. So I wonder if there's maybe not even just a consumer idea that I didn't spend a lot on this, so obviously it's not good. I wonder if maybe a part of that is just the emotional argument. If I only spent $400 on it, then it can't be as good as, you know, the $2,500 I would have spent on a MacBook or something like that.
Well, here's a $59 Windows 10 tablet.
Which one is that?
New Vision.
I have no idea what that is.
But for the price, it's actually really good.
Oh, that's cool.
I don't expect it to do much.
Right. Well, I was kind of bummed. My Acer died. I got in, I forget which one it is, but it was the little 8-inch Acer, and I think I picked it up for $80.
Yeah.
And you know, I got it when, you know, Windows 8 was brand spanking new and we were just starting to get these different tablet solutions out. And so unfortunately my Acer is now dead. It doesn't boot up anymore. But my wife's Toshiba, she doesn't use it like she used to. She kind of just has it, you know, as a bedside, her bedside table by our bed. She kind of picks it up, kind of pokes around, does a little Reddit, puts it back down, goes to bed. But it's still kicking. That thing has well exceeded my expectations for a $100 tablet.
Yeah, I had the 8-inch Dell, the $100 tablet, for a while, but the battery started bulging.
Ooh.
So
yeah, that's no good. I mean, yeah, we've been covering enough like bad battery news. You know, let's end on that note. You know, our product's exploding on us. Well, Adam, thank you so much for joining. This was something I really wanted to have you on. Again, I think your expertise really lend a nice perspective, because it's not just you using these things to review them. I've seen you in action with these products, and I've seen the kind of work that you've produced, especially from your photography business. And that's the kind of thing that I always like, that taking that conversation to a point where this is something that we're not just like, oh, well, I benchmarked it and I kind of poked around on the screen and I loaded a couple apps and it plays this one game really well. There's at least a little bit more of a focus, or at least a little bit more of a perspective on getting some kind of work done, media work, entertainment work.
I'm using it to
editing,
design signage for a building right now, and websites and posters and books, and I'm doing all of that with these guys.
So back to the Wacom. That is, so I guess that's the takeaway, right? Is for as good as these things are, it doesn't sound like anything's unseated your Wacom.
No, I switch around. You know, I'll use the Surface Pro 4. I've been using the Galaxy Book.
It's very diplomatic of you.
But the Wacom with those buttons. Those customizable buttons. It's so good.
I have no need for it, and I want one so bad. I mean, just break my heart a little bit. If I were to spec one of those out, how much would that hurt my wallet?
I think it's between, the cheapest might be $1,500, and then it can go up to like $3,000. That's
not as bad as I thought it would be.
The most expensive one has a 4 gig GPU, NVIDIA Quattro GPU.
Okay, so that's actually, I mean, like, that's why I ended up going with a gaming laptop, is because I wanted a discrete GPU.
Yeah.
That's actually not as bad as I thought you were going to say for something like that. Yeah, I would maybe consider doing something like that when it's time to replace my blade. And my wife is probably going to be very mad at me because like I'll have to replace my blade sooner than I thought I would need to.
And that one has a 16-inch screen, so that's even bigger.
Oh,
this
right on.
Only 13.
I mean, how could you even look at a 13-inch screen? It's just, that's crazy pants. All right, Adam. Thanks for dropping by, man.
Yep, thank you.
I want everyone to go and check out your Galaxy Book review. Thought that was a great write-up. Some excellent photography of the product in that review as well, as I would have expected. And a really nice look at a product, especially from the perspective of someone that really does use this class of product a lot. Yes. And I really enjoyed that read.
Since 2002 was my first one.
Right on.